comes to the TV show Beef, I'm going to be truly honest, I had a blast watching it. Really enjoyed watching the show. So many reasons. First of all, I just loved how these characters got so sucked up on the idea of revenge and how they just want to one-up the other person, and going so far into this whole revenge scheme that they want to learn more about the other person and catfish either relatives of theirs just to find more info about them, or befriend the husband of that particular person and learn more info. They just went to revenge in such an extreme way. It was really enjoyable. When watching this show, you do see a lot of similarities between these characters. First of all, they're very both work orientated. Danny, his business isn't doing the greatest and he's just trying his best to get it up and running. And then from Amy's point of view, she's got the successful business, but at the same time she has a deal which means that she can do her business from home, but she gets to spend more time with her daughter, and that is what she really wants. But sadly she's got to jump through so many hoops and please so many people in order to get that. So we're seeing the struggle for both of these characters. Another thing about these characters is their want for true happiness. In a sense, we see Danny, he believes he'll find true happiness in not only money, but also he believes he'll find it in having a successful business. And then with Amy, it's being with her child more and being financially secure. And we see these characters somewhat, to an extent, get this in the latter half of the series. Even though they are slightly happier, they don't feel truly happy. And we even see Danny ask Amy at a party if she's still happy and how can he get from where he is at this moment to get to her business. And she says not the best advice, but something very true, and that is everything fades. And we just, by that alone, we just know that she's got what she wants, but she's still not happy. And so it's definitely something internal rather than external. And that's what I really enjoyed about this show, is how they took the whole idea of true happiness or money brings true happiness. They've taken that idea and somewhat showed, in a sense, that how much of a facade it is. As, for example, outside looking in, you look at Amy and George, the relationship, you think, oh, it's a great relationship and it's all perfect. But in reality, George goes to see another woman just for emotional support because he doesn't believe his wife is satisfying him with that regard. And that's quite interesting and just shows you how it really isn't all peaches and cream over there. And then with Amy, she has to somewhat hide all of the negative emotions she has for the sake of not only her child but for her husband as well. And going back to that quote, everything fades, when we hear her say that, because it's in the latter half of the show, we learn a lot about Amy and we kind of understand of where she's coming from. Well, it's because of her childhood and what she has to go through to get that, and we kind of understand her point of view on that. But when she meets up with her boss, and her own boss, who is essentially a billionaire, says exactly that, it just proves that money doesn't always equate to happiness, and if anything, that is a facade and it will fade. And until you can truly fix what's inside of you, that wealth will be meaningless. I found that very intriguing, and I think it was very well written television. And another thing about the characters is you learn that they're very severely alone. They definitely feel lonely in this world, and we only see their true selves when they're by themselves or when they're together. And it's sad that they're so codependent, especially Danny, who really clings onto his brother Paul and does anything to make sure he is in his life by any means necessary, and is quite toxic. On the lighter note, this show has a great amount of comedy. It's just enjoyable seeing the weird types of ways they started off this petty revenge, whether it be urinating on a person's carpet or spraying a particular person's car with insults all around. I found that hysterical. I enjoyed how this beef escalates so much, going from petty misdemeanor crimes such as property damage to essentially robbery and assault and battery and attempted murder. These characters went to extreme lengths just to one-up each other. Throughout the show, it's interesting to see these characters have such pent-up rage, and they only really get to release it when it's on these two, when it's against each other. From Danny's point of view, we see that he somewhat gets used by his cousin for committing crime and takes away any power that Danny has. And then it's the same with his brother. He feels like he is lesser than his brother, and in doing so he tries to take charge, but even though he knows his brother truly is the smarter and better person. And then when it comes to Amy, she kind of has to suck up to people that she not necessarily likes, but in order to get her deal she has to suck up to these people, and it's somewhat sad. And then not only that, but she's married to someone who's a bit too positive and won't allow her to feel the negative emotion she has, and always tells her to be positive, and it's somewhat a toxic positivity in a sense, and it's not working. Sadly, like, telling her to be positive is not working. And not only is the overly positive husband, but she's also got her mother-in-law who comes in quite a lot and is very critical towards her and the house and how she's laid it out, and she sadly just has to sit there and take it. Now, when we get more and deep into the show, it starts to take a real darker route as secrets of Amy and her actions come to light to particular people, and it starts to affect everyone around them in quite a serious way, and it's very dark but at the same time very entertaining. And then when it comes to the last episode, we see the two main characters having to work together as they are stranded, and we see them somewhat bond, they're talking, and after eating poisonous berries they really start to come together and chat, and there's this weird moment where the two body swap and they're talking from the other person's perspective about their personal issues, and we're really learning a lot about them. We're seeing these two really bond for each other, and there's an odd bittersweet ending which I'm not going to spoil, but it's a really interesting ending. And I just don't know how they're going to continue this show, as obviously it's about beef, because obviously these characters are now made up, and I'd say they're quite friendly towards each other. I just don't see how the beef between them is going to continue, unless they decide to either team up and have beef with another person, which I'm 100% down to see, or we see it from a new bunch of characters and their perspective. Either way, I'm fascinated to see this show continue. When it comes to criticisms, I have to be honest, I have none. If I had to, I'd say the humour of the show fizzles out during the last part of the series, but at the same time that somewhat makes sense as it is taking a darker route, and it wouldn't really make all that much sense to have more humour during this dark period. But now in particular episodes we learn about their past, and in doing so I feel like they show more sympathy towards Amy rather than Danny, and as much as I enjoyed seeing this, I felt like if anything we're more on the side of Amy than we are of Danny, because even though yes, Amy instigated this whole road rage incident, before this she was somewhat an innocent person just with a bit of a bad childhood, and we look at that and then we see Danny's side of childhood and antics and all that, and he's got a bit of a sketchy past, and so we kind of choose Amy more than we choose Danny. I don't know why, it just bothers me. I like the idea of somewhat learning about these characters but not choosing a side. And then again, it's probably just personally me choosing a side rather than the show itself, but I just felt like they made Amy a bit more of a sympathetic character than Danny himself. And while saying that, I feel like Amy in the past definitely was more of a saint than Danny is, but she is definitely not a saint in the present. If you know, you know. Now, overall, I just really enjoyed this show. We're seeing these characters being sucked up into the idea of revenge and doing all that necessary just to one-up the other person. I just loved it. Is it good? I'd say it's truly great. I think Netflix have done a great job. I can't wait to see more. Rating wise, I'd give it 8.5 out of 10. Now, recommendations, I have to be honest, because of how great and unique this show is, slightly hard to think of recommendations. And so I've only really got two. The first one being because of Stephen Yeun and his great performance not only in this, but most people would remember him as Glenn from The Walking Dead. I definitely recommend that. He is definitely one of the top 3 most memorable characters of that show. So definitely recommend that. And then the next show is because I can see it from the perspective point of view of how in a way you don't hate any of the characters, you more sympathise, but I would recommend the show Cobra Kai, as they take characters who are antagonists and other point of view, and they just show you the growth and throw sympathy and a lot of emotions toward this character. And even though they're doing the wrong actions, you still are on their side. And the way they twist perspective and narrative, it's really good. I've definitely liked this in a sense. Definitely would recommend it. Those are my recommendations. This has been my review for the TV show Beef. Definitely recommend. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and as always, thank you and have a good day.